everybody, 8 for Life here, bringing you guys a brand new Blast from the Past. I haven't gotten a chance to do one of these in a while, and I wanted to talk about a personal favorite of mine, the Ancient Gears. These guys are from GX. They've also been in ArcV, and have been kind of reworked in ArcV too. So, for those who don't know, this deck is all about locking out your opponent's battle traps and battle spells, and just basically pummeling your opponent with brute force. Now, sadly though, while that sounds cool in theory, it doesn't really work too well in practice, and this deck needs a lot. It really needs a lot. Now then, first and foremost, the deck's two boss monsters, Ancient Gear Golem and Ancient Gear Gadgetron Dragon. Ancient Gear Golem is the more iconic one. Ancient Gear Gadgetron Dragon is the more well-known one, if that makes sense. Golem is more iconic just for being Crowler's, the guy who used this deck in GX, main boss monster. And Gadgetron Dragon is probably the most well-known one in the fact that people who didn't watch GX, whenever they hear Ancient Gear, they immediately think of this card because of the Skill Drain deck that played, I think it was Skill Drain at least, that played Ancient Gear Gadgetron Dragon and Gear Town. I think it was also more of a Malefic Skill Drain deck, if I remember correctly. And these two are arguably the two boss monsters of the deck. Gear Golem, you need him to go into the awesome Fusion monster, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Now then, Ancient Gear Golem, my biggest issue with him is that he cannot be special summoned. Now, he was the first Ancient Gear monster that we got to see in the GX anime, and it was mind-blowing. I swear that first episode of GX will always be in my memory as one of the coolest episodes in GX in general. But however, Ancient Gear Golem, whenever he attacks, and he attacks a defense possessive monster, he does piercing damage. He was probably the most well-known monster with that, aside from like Air Knight Parshaft. And if this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate any spell or trap cards. Now, this does set a precedent for the rest of the deck in that it is generally expected that the rest of the deck will have this as well. Sadly, that is not the case. The majority of the deck does, but not everybody does, which is very annoying because it's the deck's gimmick, and not everybody in the archetype does it, which is very sad. Now then, again, my only real gripe with this card is that he cannot be special summoned in any way. There are some ways around it. I know Ancient Gear, Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem special summons one if he's destroyed, but aside from that, there's no real way to bring him out, and you just got to tribute him, and he's at level 8. That means 2 tributes. So, again, my biggest issue with Ancient Gear Golem is that he cannot be special summoned. Now, Gadgetron Dragon is a very interesting monster. He can be special summoned. He has almost the same stat line as Golem. It's 1,000 less defense. Not that it really matters. He has the standard Ancient Gear effect where your opponent can't activate any spell trap cards in response to his effect. And he gets bonus effects if you tribute summon him by using the gadgets over here, the main 3. But however, they aren't really anything special. The green one is arguably the best. It gives him piercing. Red says whenever he inflicts battle damage to your opponent, inflict 400 more damage to your opponent, which again isn't really anything special. And yellow gadget, if it destroys a monster by battle, your opponent takes 600 damage, which again isn't really that special. It doesn't. That effect damage is not enough to warrant me wanting to play the gadgets in Ancient Gears. Not only that, but also, really? You gotta tribute Green Gadget in order to give this guy piercing? Really? That is just very obnoxious. I don't understand why this guy can't have that just inherently without having to tribute Green Gadget. I know that these guys, along with Gadgetron Chimera, were on like a structure deck or something, and that was like forever ago, and that was like the whole gimmick of that structure deck, but it just doesn't really work in practice. I mean, I guess you could use it like a Pendulum Ancient Gear Gadget deck or something, but again, I don't really see that really working too well. Now then, Ancient Gear Gadgetron Chimera. This is arguably the worst, second worst Ancient Gear tribute monster. Okay, we'll get to the worst here in a little bit. So if this guy is tribute summoned by tributing one of the following monsters, he gets the appropriate effect. Now he is a level 6, so you get 1. You don't get 2 like you would if you tributed 2 of these guys for Gadgetron Dragon. So if you tribute Red Gadget, he gets 300 more attack. Sorry, if you tribute Green Gadget, he gets 300 more attack. If you tribute Red Gadget, when this card successfully attacks your opponents directly, inflict 500 damage to your opponent's life points. That's not really that much. Yellow Gadget basically, if it destroys an opponent's monster, it affects 700 damage to your opponent's life points. Again, not that much, and he's only 2,300 attack points for level 6. Now, let's all be honest here. Back in the day, whenever this was released and everything, that wasn't that bad, but two big issues. First and foremost, he doesn't have the standard Ancient Gear effect. This is abhorrently bad for this card, okay? Not only does he have 3 lackluster effects that you get for tributing off, for, using one of these guys as tribute fodder for him, but he doesn't even have the Ancient Gear standard effect. Really? Why? He is so bad. I mean, there's absolutely no reason to play this card in Ancient Gears, which is really sad because this deck doesn't have that many monsters, and guys, honestly, a few of them aren't even worth playing at all. Yet you end up playing because you have to if you want to be able to play the deck properly. And this is one of the cards that you don't need at all. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and stop talking about him, otherwise I'm going to be here for 10 minutes on a tirade about how bad that card is. Now, Ancient Gear Beast. This card is really, really good. Sadly, this card cannot be special summoned. The effects of your opponent's monsters that this card destroys in battle are negated. So you negate stuff like Sandin, Dandelion, Glow-Up Bulb, stuff like that. They can't use their effects in grave. So if you run over Glow-Up Bulb is stuck in the graveyard forever. End of story. And he has the standard Ancient Gear effect. We expect that in Ancient Gears. This guy is arguably the best one tribute Ancient Gear monster. My only real gripes with him is that he has relatively lackluster stats for level 6, and he cannot be special summoned, which isn't really that big of a deal, especially whenever we get to some of the spell support. But still, the fact that he can't be special summoned and his stats are relatively lackluster hurts him a bit. Now, what's nice about him is that he negates monster effects, he destroys, and he has the standard effect of the Ancient Gears. So he's arguably almost worth playing like 2 to 3 of in the deck, and you'll see why I say 2 to 3 of, because I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Gear Time basically says Ancient Gears require one less tribute, so this guy you can just normal summon for free, and you don't have to tribute summon it, and you don't have to tribute off anything. And that is really helpful for this deck, because as you can see, half the deck is tributes. They need tributes. So, Ancient Gear Beast, he is arguably the deck's main beater outside of like Golem or something. And he is really, really good. Now, sadly, he only negates the monsters that he destroys by battle that are in the graveyard. I don't know how this guy would be ruled with pendulums, because then they could just come back, and I don't know. But basically, if he hits someone in the graveyard, it stays there. It doesn't get its effect, which is really nice. Now then, Ancient Gear Engineer. This card, apart from how the name kind of rhymes, Ancient Gear Engineer, I've always kind of liked that. It's kind of fun to say. This card is terrible. It wouldn't even be good by the original series standards. It's a level 5 with 1500 attack, 1500 defense. That is atrociously bad, okay? There's friggin' level 5s from the original series that have more attack points than this thing. Now, I know we're just judging it by its attack points and stuff, but in this deck, that kind of matters. So, he has a decent effect, though. I will give him that, though. My biggest issue is that this thing's not a level 4, and it has crap stats. If this thing was a level 4 with 1500 attack, I wouldn't mind it as much. I'd still have an issue with it, but the fact that he's a level 5 makes that 1500 attack a lot worse. Now then, negate the effect of any trap card that targets this card and destroy that trap card. So your opponent cannot Phoenix Chain it, they cannot break their skill it, they can't try and compulse it, and that is really good. I like that a lot. Now then, and he has a standard Ancient Gear effect where if he attacks, your opponent can't activate anything in response, which again is really good and is to be expected of Ancient Gear monsters. And he has a third effect, which is also really good. When his card attacks, destroy one spell or trap card your opponent on your opponent's side of the field at the end of the damage step. So the idea around this card is that no matter what, he will get a pop. He will get to pop a spell or trap card. Your opponent can't target him with any trap cards. They can try, but it'll just destroy and get negated. And they can't respond to his attack with spells and traps. Granted, he has crap stats, But however, the idea is that he will always be able to clear out your opponent's back row, or in more recent cases, be able to clear out your opponent's pendulum zones. My issue with this thing is that it's a level 5 with 1500 attack points. Okay, if it was a level 4 with 1500 attack points, I wouldn't mind it that much. But the fact that it's a level 5, you have to tribute off one monster if you don't have Gear Town to summon this thing. And trust me guys, if you don't have Gear Town in this deck and you're playing any amount of the tribute summon monsters aside from Golem and Gadgetron Dragon, they can get cloggy if you don't get to Gear Town super quick. And that is just really annoying. Now then, if Ancient Gear Engineer had 2,000 attack points, he'd be a lot better, okay? 2,000 attack, in my personal opinion, is like standard minimum for a level 5 monster that's in the main deck, okay? Certain monsters in the extra deck and stuff, depending on their effects, can get away with having less than 2,000 attack points, but however, for the most part, they should have at least 2,000. Okay, and maybe an inherent way of special summoning it, or summoning it very easily. Now then, Ancient Gear Knight. This is arguably the best level 4 in the deck. Actually, no, it is the best level 4 in the deck. My only issue with this card is that he is a Gemini, so you don't get the effect until you Gemini summon him, which means you have to use 2 normal summons, and all you get is the standard Ancient Gear effect. He is just nice for being on level 4 with 1800 attack and 500 defense. That means your opponent's going to have to kind of work to get over him, depending on what your opponent's playing, because, I mean, 1800 attacks can be kind of troublesome for some decks, not so much for most others, like 95% of others. But however, he's 1800, he's a level 4. Generally good stat lines for a level 4 monster. And then we get Ancient Gear Soldier, 1300 attack point monster of the standard Ancient Gear effect. Sadly, not much else to say about this guy. He's just the level 4. He's kind of just there chilling. That crappy stat line doesn't really matter too much because, generally speaking, if you normal summon him, you're just going to use him to go into NXCs. That's about it. I mean, there's not much more to say about him. I wish he had like the same stats as Ancient Gear Knight, but oh well. I mean, heck, even 1500 attack would have been nice. Oh well. Ancient Gearbox. I'm going to say this now. Whenever I heard that we were getting more Ancient Gear support in Prio, okay, Primal Origin, I remember that that's the set that this guy came out in because that was the set that a lot of older decks got more support in, and I was really hyped up about new Ancient Gear support. I thought, oh cool, new Ancient Gear support. Hey, maybe the deck will be maybe not competitively viable, but maybe more viable than others. Well, more viable than it is already. This card did literally nothing for the deck. Okay, if this card is added from the deck to or graveyard to your hand, except by drawing it, you can add an Earth Machine type monster of 1500 attack or defense from your deck to your hand, except himself. So, what cards in this deck can you search? Ancient Gear Cannon and Ancient Gear Knight. He can search 2 cards in the archetype. And this deck has no inherent way of searching. This deck has no inherent way of drawing. The literal only way you can get this effect off inherently in the deck without having to use like Gear Gigant or something is by using Ancient Gear Workshop and adding it from the graveyard back to your hand, which I'm sure is what they were thinking. But here's the thing. You can only search 2 cards in the whole freaking deck. One of them is good. The other is not so much. Granted, after rereading his effect, he's not too terrible, but I don't know if I would play him, because it seems like just a waste of a normal summon. This card is trash in the deck. I hate saying that, because normally I'm the kind of person who tries to see the good in a card, but this is just terrible for the archetype. Okay, granted, yes, he can be used. I know he was used in, what was it, Gear Gia for a little bit, because he could search out, like, Augur or something. They don't even play him anymore. Partly because I don't think anybody remembers this card. But, however, seriously though, this card is not good in the deck. Now, if they get any more Earth Machine type monsters that have 500 attack or defense, preferably defense, because this deck is a very offensive, aggressive deck, then maybe I could see people playing this card in Ancient Gears, but This card is just so bad in the deck. Okay, I'm not going to draw on it anymore. This episode's starting to get kind of long. And I haven't even got to the spells yet. Ancient Gear Cannon. I used to think this card was crap. And then after I reread its effect, I'm like, oh, that's not too bad. But however, it still needs to be normal summon. So this thing's a level 2, 500 attack, 500 defense. Machine or standard, stuff. By attributing this card, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. Not bad. And then neither player can activate trap cards during the battle phase of this turn. That's not bad. My issue with this is that you use up your normal summon to do that, and you already have to have an established board. I mean, he's not terrible, but it's just not even all that great. Another issue with it is that generally speaking, trap cards are not an issue with this deck during the battle phase, so it just seems like it's kind of like random support for this deck. I mean, okay, yeah, sure, you have something like Gadgetron Chimera that doesn't have the standard effect and just kind of gives it to it, kind of, technically not, thing. It just is really just not all that great. Now then, Ancient Gear. This card, I'm not entirely sure if this card is good or not. It depends on how it's rolled. It says, while an Ancient Gear is face up on your side of the field, you can spell summon this card from your hand in attack position. So, I'm not entirely sure if that only counts itself or if it counts any Ancient Gear monster. I'm pretty sure it only counts itself because it doesn't say Ancient Gear monster. I'm not entirely sure on that, but however, all that I know is that it's not that bad. It's just tribute fodder. That is literally the entire idea of this card. You get it out, you special summon 2 more, and then you tribute them off for Ancient Gear Golem. My only real issue with this card is actually getting one out and then having 2 more in your hand or 1 more in your hand. Now what's nice about this card is that it does give the deck access to Gachi Gachi and other rank 2s. But however, really honestly, you don't go into that very often. Generally speaking, if you're going to summon out multiple Ancient Gears, you're going to be using them to just go into the big guys, which isn't that bad. Now then, Spell Gear. This card is amazing. Send 3 face-up Ancient Gear cards you control to the graveyard, and then special summon up to 1 Ancient Gear Golem from your hand and 1 from your deck, ignoring the summoning conditions. Then destroy all monsters you control except Ancient Gear Golem. You cannot normal summon or set until the end of your next turn. So, for the measly cost of sending 3 Ancient Gear cards you control, that goes for spells, monsters, traps if we ever get any, abstract monsters, like the fusion. Just send them to the graveyard, summon out 2 of these guys, 1 from your hand, 1 from your abstract, from your deck, for free, ignoring their summoning conditions. Okay, so you do that, you get out 2 3,000 attack point monsters that your opponent cannot respond to their attacks, generally speaking, and they have piercing. This card is amazing. My biggest gripe is that it's got a semi-huge cost, and if you have any other monsters, they get destroyed. But however, if it's a monster that can't be destroyed, like a 101, and it has material and you save it, they stay on the field. This card is really good. Again, my only gripe is that it basically locks you out of your normal summon, and it does need 3 Ancient Gears on the field to activate it. That being said, though, it's still an amazing card. Just prepare to cry if your opponent saw warnings this. Ancient Gear Explosive. Target 1 face-up Ancient Gear monster on your side of the field. When you activate this card, destroy the target monster and inflict damage to your opponent equal to half its attack to your opponent. This card is not that good at all, I'm going to be honest. The only usefulness it has is finishing off your opponent because, you were just 500 damage off. Okay, I'm going to pop my soldier and then do whatever half of 1,300 is. I'm too lazy to do the math. To your opponent, and then, hey, game. It's just popping your own monster to do a bit of effect damage, which generally speaking is not going to be that much. I mean, the highest you can get to in this deck, if you pop something like Ancient Gear, ignoring Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem because there's no way you're going to destroy this thing unless it's Phoenix Chained, is you're going to pop Ancient Gear Golem and hey, you're going to do 1,500 damage to your opponent. That's not that much in retrospect, and you just wasted your Ancient Gear Golem. That's my issue with it. Now then, Ancient Gear Factory. Select 1 Ancient Gear monster in your hand, show it to your opponent. Remove from play Ancient Gear cards in your graveyard whose total levels are equal to the double selected cards. You can normal summon a selected card without tributes this turn. So, You reveal, I don't know, Ancient Gear Golem. You banish Ancient Gear monsters in your graveyard that are equal to 18. Sorry, no, 16. I'm bad at math. You banish a total of 16 levels. And that can be like 2 other Ancient Gears in your graveyard. That can be any combination of Ancient Gear monsters, so long as they equal 16. And you can normal summon Ancient Gear Golem without tribute. The only issue with this card I have is that it's really only good late game. I'm going to be honest, it's only really good late game, and that's about it. Which isn't really all that great. I mean, seriously though, you have to banish 16 levels? You're going to be banishing quite a lot of monsters. Ancient Gear Workshop. Add 1 Ancient Gear monster from your graveyard to your hand. And this card is really good because a lot of the 2 most prominent Ancient Gear monsters, in my personal opinion, Golem and Beast, can't be special summoned, so this just adds them back to your hand. And then, oh hey, you can tribute them or summon them in another way. Or, oh hey, you have an Ancient Gear in your grave, and 1 in your deck, and you don't have any in your hand, just add it back to your hand, activate Spell Gear, there you go. It's not a bad card. It really is not. It's like a 3 of in the deck, really, to be completely honest, because it's an archetype Rhoda. Well, not Rhoda. Warrior Returning Alive. And it's really not all that bad. It just helps with getting your boss monsters back and helps with getting your little dudes out to go into more plays. 1 Ancient... Okay, sorry, why did I say 1? For some reason my mind went into deck profile mode. So, Ancient Gear Drill. Something I just want to say is that, see that little orb, it's also in Ancient Gear Canon. I don't know if that's like any kind of lore thing going on there, but this is something I wanted to point out. Anyways, Ancient Gear Drill. This card is really good in my personal opinion. Activate only while you control a face-up Ancient Gear monster. Discard 1 card from your hand, select 1 spell card from your deck and set it. You cannot use that spell card this turn. This is basically one of the few ways that you can search out a spell card in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! There are not many ways to search a spell card in the game of well, generic spell cards at least. Okay, yes, you have spellbooks, they can search spell cards all day and night. But searching out any generic spell card? That is amazing, okay? So you cannot set it that turn. I mean, you cannot activate it that turn. So, okay, let me just discard a card while I have Ancient Gear Golem, set Twin Twister, attack, your turn. Oh, hey, that's nice pendulum skills there. Activate Twin Twister. It is a really good card. My only real issue with it is that you have to discard a card and you have to have an Ancient Gear out, which isn't generally speaking an issue with this deck, but still, it's a pretty good card in my personal opinion. Ancient Gear Castle, honestly, like, one of the I'm gonna be honest, one of the best spell cards in the deck. So, each face-up Ancient Gear monster you control, Ancient Gear monsters, so it even includes your opponents, but let's face it, you're not going to be in a mirror match of this deck. Gain 300 attack. That kind of helps out with the attack point issue that some of the monsters have. Each time a monster is normal summoned or set, a monster or monsters is normal summoned or set, put 1 counter on this card. If you tribute summon an Ancient Gear monster, you can substitute this card for a tribute equal to the number, if the number of counters is equal to or greater than the number of required tributes. So, what I like about this card is that, first and foremost, it gives a blanket 300 attack points to all your Ancient Gears. So, Ancient Gear Soldier becomes 16, Knight becomes 21. This does stack if you have multiples out, by the way. Engineer becomes 18, which it should be at minimum. Beast becomes 23, so on and so forth. A really good card just for that. Well, okay, if it just had that, it wouldn't be all that great. But being able to just gain those counters, and then sack this card off to summon out Ancient Gear Golem for free is really good. And heck, you don't even have to do the summoning. Your opponent can just normal summon a crap ton and, oh hey, this gets a kind of ton of counters. Okay, my turn, send. Normal summon Ancient Gear Golem. Ha! It's a really good card for the deck and just helps out the deck with getting out the bigger guys for free without having to really tribute off very much stuff. Ancient Gear Tank. This is the deck's way of saying, oh, hey, you don't want to play Engineer because he has crap stats. Okay, well, equip him with this. Ancient Gear Tank, it can only be equipped to an Ancient Gear monster, obviously. It gains 600 attack. When this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, inflicts 600 damage to your opponent. This is not a bad card at all. My only real issue with it is that it's an equipped card. I kind of wish it was just a normal spell card that, like, targeted an Ancient Gear, gains 600 attack, and if that monster is destroyed, your opponent takes 600 damage. But however, it's not a bad equip card at all. The only issue that I see with it is that not many Yu-Gi-Oh players are very open to equip cards. Like, the only equip cards you ever see people really willing to play are equip cards that steal your opponent's monsters. But however, Ancient Gear Tank can really help out the deck. It turns Engineer into a 2100, which almost makes him playable. Turns Knight into a 2400. These guys become beat sticks with these, especially if you equip multiples. It's really fun to just jack up a soldier by equipping him with multiple tanks. Not a bad card for the deck. My only real issue with it is that it's an equip spell, and that's not even my issue, it's other people's issues with it. Also, it can be a bit inconsistent, to be completely honest. Like, Engineer only becomes really good when it's equipped with Tank, and you're not guaranteed to have both of these, especially since this deck has no way of searching. Now then, Ancient Gear Fist. Equip only to an Ancient Gear monster, destroy any monster that battles with it at the end of the damage step. I've always found this card to be kind of redundant, because generally speaking, if you're going to be attacking a monster, it's going to die anyways. But however, there are some times where it's really helpful. You equip it onto an Ancient Gear Golem. Oh, he attacks over and a Honor Arc. Honor Arc saves itself, and then, oh hey, Ancient Gear Fist destroys Honor Arc. It's not that bad, but it's not really worth playing either. Generally speaking, you're not going to ever really need its effect very often. I mean, if your opponent has a Marshmallow out, you're just going to keep poking over it with your Ancient Gear Golem and stuff. It's good and bad and just plain situational, really, to be honest. Gear Town. This field spell is amazing for this deck. Both players contribute summon Ancient Gear monsters with one less tribute. That right there is perfect. Okay, they could just have ended this card right there. Done. This card is amazing right then and there. But they went and added another effect onto it, and it is amazing with that other effect. When this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your hand, deck, or grave. What? Okay, your opponent blindly missees your Gear Town. Okay, here comes a Gadgetron Dragon. I don't have to explain it much more than that. Now then, honorable mention I want to throw in real quick is Toon Ancient Gear Golem. He's a Toon version of Ancient Gear Golem. It's as simple as that. He's technically part of the archetype, so I kind of had to include him. But he's also not part of the archetype. Like, if you're going to be playing him, you're going to be playing him in Toons. You're not going to be playing him in Ancient Gears. The one and only thing that he has over the old Ancient Gear Golem is that he can be special summoned, so you can trade him in, call it haunted him back. That's the only good thing he has over him, but other than that, you're better off just playing Ancient Gear Golem in this deck because it allows you to go into this big guy. Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. This card is one of the coolest looking and just most awesome fusion monsters in the game. I believe he's also the strongest machine type monster in the game. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. This card cannot be special summoned except by fusion summon. He needs an Ancient Gear Golem plus two Ancient Gear monsters. So you need Ancient Gear Golem plus any two other monsters. It can even be 3 Ancient Gear Golems if you wanted to. He's 4,400 attack, 3,400 defense. That is amazing stat line. During the battle between this attacking card and a defense possessing monster whose defense is lower than his, but he does piercing. If this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell or trap effects until the end of the damage step. If this card is destroyed, you can spell summon an Ancient Gear Ancient Gear Golem from your graveyard, ignoring the summoning conditions. Okay, so it's basically just a souped up Ancient Gear Golem, but 4,400 attack piercer, and your opponent can't respond to its attacks. That is amazing! And oh wait, if they Dark Hole it, okay, here comes an Ancient Gear Golem from the graveyard. Which you're going to have one in there because you fusion summon this thing using an Ancient Gear Golem. That is just downright amazing. Now, brief mention on the gadgets. I want to just mention them. They're only really useful for getting these guys as bonus effects. Neither of them are really worth needing to play these guys to go into. And he's technically part of this deck, and same thing with so they're all technically part of the little sub archetype over here. So I just wanted to quickly mention them. Now then, on to the anime stuff. First we have Ancient Gear Statue from the GX anime. You contribute this card, face up card you control, special summon 1 Ancient Gear Golem from your hand, ignoring the summoning conditions. Why do we not have this card? It's as simple as that. Why do we not have this card? This card should have been printed a long time ago. this would help out the deck a lot. It would almost make me want to play a triple Ancient Gear Golem because it is just so amazingly good. Just being able to tribute off summon out an Ancient Gear Golem. It's basically a Kaiba ban for the deck. Now then. By the way, this is the only GX card that showed up whenever I searched Ancient Gear, so I'm going to assume that this is the only Ancient Gear anime card. If there's any more, please feel free to correct me in the comments down below. And by anime card, I mean GX anime. Now we get to the cards that are in the Arc Feet. So for those who don't watch Arc Feet and don't know, the Fusion Dimension in Arc Feet is basically an evil version of Dueling Academy from GX. And the soldiers that are like invading the other areas, basically they use Ancient Gears as their like main weapons against everybody else. And they go about this a very different way because they want to show off fusions and they want to show off how more powerful the fusion summoning mechanic is than the Scum XYZs and the I don't know what they call synchros. But the point is that this new playstyle for Ancient Gears is all about the burn damage and fusion summoning into slowly stronger more monsters. Now sadly one card from the anime is not on here. That is Ancient Gear Chaos Fusion or something like that. Basically it's like you banish I believe it's 4 monsters that are you banish 4 extra monsters in your graveyard. And then you like fusion summon an Ancient Gear monster Ancient Gear fusion monster by using fusion materials from your hand, deck, or extra deck that are listed on that monster. It's something like that. It's just stupidly cool polymerization, and it's used to summon this big guy out. Now then. First and foremost, there's Ancient Gear Hound Dog. If this card attacks, he has a standard no spell trap card clause. Once per turn, if your opponent controls a monster, you can inflict 600 damage to your opponent. That is actually kind of useful, especially if you equip them on with Ancient Gear Tank. Now then, if you control another Ancient Gear monster, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand, or your decided to fusion. Decided to field its fusion materials. He basically allows you to fusion something without polymerization, provided you have another Ancient Gear out. Now then, there's Double Bite Hound, which is basically 2 Hound Dogs. And to go into this guy, he has 1400 attack, so he's slightly more beefy. He's a level 5 fusion. If this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell trap cards, blah blah blah. Once per turn, during your first turn, if a monster is normal summon or spell summoned to your opponent's side of the field, you can place 1 Gear Acid counter on that monster, max of 1. And to start out the damage step, if a monster with a Gear Acid counter battles, you can destroy that monster. So, whenever your opponent summons out anything, they get a Gear Acid card on him. That's a counter, not card. And then if that monster battles, you can just destroy it instantly. End of story. So, you basically turn all of your opponent's monsters that they summon into ticking time bombs, and if they try to attack, you auto-kill them. That is really stupid. Again, the whole idea of these new guys are to show off how powerful the fusion mechanic is compared to the others. Which, I'm not saying it's better, but according to the Fusion Dimension, it is. And just overpowering your opponent. Now then, there's Ancient Gear Triple Bite Hound Dog. He needs Ancient Gear Hound Dog, Ancient Gear Hound Dog, Ancient Gear Hound Dog, or Ancient Gear Hound Dog plus Ancient Gear Double Bite Hound Dog. So you basically need either 3 of these guys or 1 of these guys and 1 of these guys. Kind of difficult summoning requirements there. So this guy's 1800. 1800 attack points, and with this effect, that's not that terrible. If this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell trap cards until the end of the damage step. This card can make up to 3 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. Yeah, you heard me right. This thing can attack 3 times, but it's got to attack monsters. If you power bond into this thing, it's a 3600 beat stick. And it can attack 3 times? What? That is just really stupid. That being said, though, if you don't power bond into him, he's only 1800 attack. That's nothing really special, but however, if like you have Ancient Gear Double Bite Hound Dog on the field along with him, and all of your opponent's monsters have Gear Acid counters on them, you can just attack all of them, auto kill them each, and then oh hey, look at that, your opponent doesn't have anything, and your other monsters can attack directly. That's basically the general idea of this deck. Well, these two, they kind of do their own little combo. And then there's Ancient Gear Ultimate Hound Dog. This thing is stupid. Ancient Gear Triple Bite Hound Dog plus 1 Ancient Gear monster. So it needs this dude plus any other Ancient Gear. That's actually pretty good for summoning, for what it needs. If this card is fused and summoned, half your opponent's life points. This card can make up to 3 attacks during each battle phase, and he has a standard. Your opponent cannot activate any spell or trap cards until the end of the damage step. So, when this thing is summoned, half your opponent's life points. So if they're at 8,000, they become 4,000. This thing can attack 3 times, and your opponent can't respond to them. What? That is so stupid. That is so stupid. It's not even funny. Oh my god, yet I'm laughing. This card is so stupid. I would be scared if this card came out in real life with this exact effect. The only thing that makes it not so broken is that it does need it needs a fusion monster. It needs a fusion monster to go into. Granted, though, this thing can be summoned by using 3 of these things, but how often is that going to happen? I swear, if these guys do get released, I hope they have like some clause that says you can't use fusion substitutes. But anyways, so then we get to Ancient Gear Chaos Giant. First and foremost, let me just say, if you somehow manage to summon this thing without using Ancient Gear Chaos Fusion, which sadly is not on YGL Pro, you deserve to win. And by the way, if this guy does get released, he will be the strongest fusion monster in the game, because he's 100 more over Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. Sorry, strongest machine type fusion monster, and probably strongest machine type monster. 4,500 attack, 3,000 defense. He needs he needs Ancient Gear Hound Dog plus Double Bite Hound Dog. He needs the original, the double, the triple, and the ultimate to go into. So you need all 4 of these guys. You need all 4 of these. And by the way, for that huge summoning cost, this thing is totally worth it. Cannot be targeted by and is unaffected by your opponent's spell and trap card effects. That alone is stupid. This card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. If this card attacks, negate the effects of all monsters your opponent controls until the end of the damage step. So your opponent can't touch the same spell and trap cards. You can attack all of your opponent's monsters. It has 4,500 attack points. And if it attacks, all your opponent's monsters have their effects negated. Yeah, that's a thing. Like, if your opponent activates someone and summons this thing, you better have a solemn warning, because you are screwed if your opponent summons this thing. The only saving grace against this card is that it does nothing against monster effects that target it or get rid of it before attacking, like Castell or 101, stuff like that. But however, if you're summoning this thing, you deserve to win. just saying. Now then. They also have got the trap cards, which is a first, as you can see, since this deck has literally no trap cards. Ancient Gear Rebirth Fusion. If an Ancient Gear monster you control leaves a field by an opponent's card effect, target one of those monsters. Special summon a fusion monster from your extra deck. That monster has a fusion material. And by the way, this is treated as a fusion summon. So, I forgot that this was even a card, because the guy who used it did not have this thing. Because he basically used, I think his Ancient Gear Hound Dog got destroyed by a card effect, and he just used this to bring out this. They use it to bring out this. This can bring out this if this gets Mirror Forced or something. It can't get Mirror Forced, but you know what I mean. This, plus any of these guys being destroyed by Dark Hole or any other card effect, equals this. For free! Okay. Realistically, though, if you just look at the card, it's a good card. Okay. Ignoring this thing, it's not that bad. If you have this thing to factor in, it's broken. But however, it can be used to summon out Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. It can be used to summon out any of these guys. Even this guy, if Triple Bite Hound Dog gets killed. So it's really good. It's broken if you summon Chaos Giant. I hope to God if we do get these guys, that Chaos Giant has some kind of summoning clause that he must be summoned by Ancient Gear Chaos Fusion. Not an Ancient Gear Booster. Once per turn, if an Ancient Gear card you control activates an effect that would inflict effect damage, you can double that effect damage. So if you activate Hound Dog's effect to burn your opponent for 600, you can use this to double that to 1200. That's not that bad at all. Really good card. Ancient Gear Reborn, once per turn, if you control no monsters, you can target an Ancient Gear monster that was sent to the graveyard this turn, special summon it, and if you do, increase its original attack by 200. That is really, really good, and I feel like this deck needs it really bad. Now then, Ancient Gear Spark Shot. If attacking one Ancient Gear monster is a special summon from your graveyard while you control no monsters, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the attack of just a special summon monster. So you bring back a dude. I don't know. Let's say you bring back Gadgetron Dragon. Okay, he gets 300 more attack points. No, 200 more. So it becomes 3,200. You then use this to inflict your opponent 1,600 damage, if I'm doing my math right, and then you use this to double that to 3,200. That is a really mean burn combo right there, and they actually do that quite a lot in the anime. I really like that combo, by the way. It's a mean little combo, but you gotta have 3 friggin' continuous trap cards out on the field to do it. Now then, with all that being said, I absolutely love the anime stuff that they got from Orc V. But what do they need? Really, to be completely honest, they need better monsters. They need more low-level monsters. They need more good spell cards that are worth playing. I mean, granted, they have quite a few. This, basically, these, maybe this, and this, obviously. But they need more. They obviously very much need traps. And I wouldn't mind seeing another fusion or two that does not mention Hound Dog. But aside from that, this deck really does need a lot of work in terms of monsters, maybe a better spell or two, and some decent trap cards. Most of which, I'm not going to lie, they're getting that in the Arc V anime. I just hope to God we get these cards in real life. And that this thing is not as easy to summon as activating this when this guy gets Dark Hole. So guys, tell me what you think. Sorry this ran for 40 minutes. I'm trying not to have these run for so long. I'm really surprised this ran for so long because of how much smaller this is compared to my Neos thing. But I really want to do an in-depth look over these archetypes that we were looking at and giving my personal opinions on everything. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you all for watching, especially if you stayed for this long. Hope you enjoy, tell me what deck you'd like to see next time. Well, I'm thinking of doing Venoms next time, or maybe Retro Heroes. We'll see. So guys, again, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Peace out and good.